So, I hope that just gave us some ideas as to what this next session is going to be about. And it's all really about, it's a fashion surgery. It's thinking about, this, building on what we've already talked about this morning, but in a little bit more detail. And Paul Bay is going to be running this session, Paul, and he is the founder of Citizenbay and Citizenguild. I think you might need to switch on at the side. If it's not working, yeah, it should say on. So Paul, it's over to you for the rest of the, until lunch.
Until lunch. Hopefully you're not hungry yet. If you are, please hold on for another 40 minutes because I've got a couple of great panellists here. There should be a third, so if you see someone all of a sudden bum rush the stage, don't try and hold them back. They should actually be... so we're awaiting Chitra, but just to introduce you, we've got two great panellists here. We've got Lenique here, who's a phenomenal jewellery designer. I urge you all to look at her hands when you pass her by later on today. Phenomenal stuff. She's also is the Prince's Trust Ambassador 2012. So we're blessed with her presence. She's going to share with us some of her experiences setting up a business and growing it from scratch. But we're also lucky to have Juliet at the end here, who's the co-founder and chief creative officer of Sylistpick. And if you haven't had a little look at Sylistpick, it's a brilliant little website, so go and check that out. But also Juliet's got great experience from the past, having been at WGSN as well. So she knows a thing or two. Now, the topic today is really around, we've already seen about the slow movement, slow fashion, the starting up your business, trying to get it off the ground and all of the difficulties it's faced. And what we'd like to do is try and consider how then to promote it, how to market it, how to go out there. Is it the old days of buying the fashion editor of Vogue a glass of champagne and getting lots of lovely PR? Or is it about co-creation? Is it about having a Pinterest board? Is it about creating a Facebook page? Or is it something a little bit more complex? Is it about continual prototyping? Or is it something that there's some wonderful magic formula? So, first of all, I'd just like to ask these guys just to share some of their experiences in and around the world of marketing, of what went right and what went wrong. I think we could all learn from that. And then it's going to be opening up to you guys to ask as many questions as you want. Okay? So let's start with Lenique. Go ahead. Here, try that one.
Hi everyone. In terms of marketing, I would say, I'm going to just say the biggest mistake I made in marketing. I think it was doing advertising in Vogue, because they basically approached me and they were like, oh, we really love your jewellery and we really feel that it would be amazing in the advertising page and you'll get so many customers for it. And basically they blitzed and glammed it as much as they could, and I thought, yeah, why not? And it was, they said it was 1,200, but they gave me such a big discount because they believed that I would get so much customers. So they said £400. So I thought, oh, they're really giving me a good bargain, so why not? That was one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. I done it twice, actually. I done it, so that's like £400. I never learned from the first time. I never got one customer, not one, no, not even. I never saw anything in my website. There was no sort of inquiries, nothing. I just don't feel anyone goes to that page to inquire about jewellery. I think if not at the back, if you're going to be in Vogue, it's better to be in the editor's picks or at the front, not necessarily at the back. And it kind of devalued my brand in terms of, like, I was going to the advertising route. And I would just advise anyone that, depending on how they want their brand to be perceived, that maybe the advertising route isn't the best thing, because you have to see all the other kind of companies that you're faced with. There was a few other, I was in a list basically, and there were other people like that done beadwork, and obviously I was doing high-end jewellery. It just didn't match. And this is again, I didn't do research. I heard the name Vogue. I just didn't think, there was no kind of sort of thought process in. So I would say that was one of the biggest mistakes in terms of that, the advertising route. So,
But you learnt from it.
yeah, I learned from it. I would never do it again. Never. Never, never, never.
Because we were saying in the break that it's that great philosopher, your father, gave you a great tip. What was that?
Yeah, my dad gave me a really good tip. Obviously, in business, to keep the momentum going, sometimes it's quite hard, and sometimes you fail, you know. Sometimes you fail and you make mistakes, but you just have to kind of just, as long as you have a goal, just keep on going. And sometimes failing does help you, because once you make the mistake once, you don't want to make it again. Obviously, when it came to Vogue, I done it twice, so I didn't learn from that situation. But I learned now, and I'm not. When it comes to money, you will learn, because you know that's cash flow, so you don't want to be making those pricey mistakes. Yeah, that's it really.
That's a good tip to share.
Yeah.
Don't worry about making mistakes as long as you don't do it more than once.
Yeah.
Juliet, what about you?
Can everyone hear me? Because I'm really, I'll forget about that. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay. You need it for, oh God, all right. Okay, I will forget. Just to build on that, there's a line that says fail, fail again, fail better. And I think it's really, really important any time that you're in marketing, wherever you are in the market, whatever you do, you have to have permission to fail. You got to fuck it up. When you fuck it up, you figure out what's right, and then you go and you build on what's right. So I definitely feel that that's always great, basic to have. Could I just get a read of the room? And apologies because I wasn't here earlier. How many people here are in digital businesses right now? Okay, and how many people here are in just pure fashion right now? Okay, so some of the stuff that I'm going to say is going to be more relevant to the digital side, because what I did before I got here is just talk to my social team, my online team, one of whom I've got with me today. So apologies if this isn't all relevant, but one of them definitely is, one of our lessons absolutely is fail, fail again, fail better. One of ours is just about control. You know, it's really, really important that if you are in a startup, get all the wise advice that you possibly can. But if you are going to do an exercise, try and maintain it and try and do as much of it as you possibly can internally, because it will mean that you can do things faster. So, you know, if you are thinking about what you want to do from an agency point of view, and you're thinking about your newsletter strategy, for instance, you're going to have a 2 or 3 day delay if you're working with an agency. And actually, when you're small, you need to be able to pivot, and you need to be able to do things really quickly. So do think about how much you can handle in-house versus how much you do sort of externally. If you are, one of the things that we do an awful lot of is we test lots and lots of new activity. But if you're going to do that, sometimes you're going to get some great ideas that are concepts that won't necessarily work. So when you're agreeing that deal, put a break clause in there so that you can make sure that you test it and you test it appropriately. But maybe you say, look, can I get out of this contract with 24 hours notice, just to enable you to test it. Don't spend too much money and then just get out quickly. That protects you. So for instance, if you've got someone who's saying, we want £5,000 because we want it, you know, you can do this for 3 months, you may not be able to afford it. You may be able to test it within a couple of days and decide whether or not it's going to work for you. If it's going to work for you, fantastic, do it. But don't commit all that money up front, because that could be dangerous to your bottom line. And also, if you are working with other people, always just make sure that you've got your metrics right, and that everyone is judging everything by their metrics, by the same metrics. So if you judge by, for instance, last click, as opposed to page impression, just make sure that everyone's on the same page in terms of who you're working with, so that you've all got the same thing. And if you can monitor what you're doing internally, do that, because you've got the control mechanism and you've got the control again. So especially when it comes to digital, it's all about how much you can do yourself, how much you can maintain, and then because it's so data-led, it means that you can have a much smarter conversation and you can control your money better.
And the horror story?
It was less of a horror story and more of just, you know, control. You know, just get those breakout clauses and protect yourself. So. I mean, you know, we have done some things where we have possibly not got out as quickly as we possibly could. But test early and then get out as quickly as you can if it's not working. Test
early. Earlier today we had a great little panel on the slow fashion movement. There's also a movement in marketing called the slow marketing movement, which instead of going about big push communication, which spends lots and lots of money in a short space of time, to think about building long-term trust with customers, which I think we'd all agree is a huge better thing, rather than the promise doesn't meet the delivery. Focus on a slow marketing approach, so maybe that's another thing that we can develop in the questions. Thank you for that. But as you saw, Chitra has arrived. I've already introduced you, but Chitra is here right now. Got slightly delayed, but thankfully she's here because this is another person who's got an amazing insight into this whole industry, and also runs a wonderful course in fashion entrepreneurship as well. So Chitra, I'd like to ask you, now you've caught your breath, is a horror story in and around marketing, because we're already hearing about 2 horror stories that involves one that clauses and the other one spending too much money. But is there any horror story you'd like to share where it may not be about marketing, it may be about time spent on thinking about the right kind of approach to communicate?
Well, recently a horror story, I'm not sure if that's the right word, a problem I did hear about is at an e-commerce conference, was actually handling complaints from the consumer and sending out a Twitter or an email that's sort of very dismissive, and actually not being able to handle that properly. And I think sort of crisis management in that case is absolutely critical. And I think time to time, can't go into detail because I can't remember all the details, but what really struck me is the fact that this retailer didn't actually realise the impact of that one email, the impact across the board, and so the way that actually travels virally is critical. And sort of handling those problems, those complaints, handling them promptly, with the right language, the right respect, is absolutely critical. And so that's what I think came across.
We've had 3 different perspectives on the horror stories. If Chitra, one tip for everyone in this room, if there's one thing that keeps coming through the work that you do time and time again, what would be the one essential tip that you would give out to companies, whether it's digital startups or pure fashion startups? What would that tip be?
Well, I think the word you picked up was slow. I think that's incredibly important, and trust. And you can only build that sort of incrementally and organically through word of mouth. And like that, I keep on hearing again and again, is this trust. And you know, that comes through that sort of communication, digital communication, written communication, telephone communication, and sort of handling all those channels to the same degree, as well as in store, obviously. And I think that what I keep on seeing is that retailers or brands sort of forget one channel in preference to another. And I think you've got to have that sort of standardization and building trust. And it's interesting to see John Lewis grabbing so much business from Comic going under. And I think that's, you know, John Lewis has been around a long time, and they've built trust slowly over the years. They haven't actually changed their model drastically, but the message is always there, and I think that's what I'm hearing.
There's Reader's Digest do a global survey on trust every year, and 2011, politicians were not trusted in any way, shape or form by about 77% of Europeans. Interesting enough, 81% didn't trust advertising. So advertising world is trusted less than politicians. That shows there's a lot of work to be done in terms of building trust. And what's fascinating with startups, there's so much that can be done right from the first day to build trust in a slow, considered approach. I think it's time for you guys to talk, not us. So let's hear some questions from this audience. Who's got a question? And now it's all gone quiet.
It's not a question, it's just, I did exactly what you did. Walk, but not in advertising. You know that page where small Zero response.
Yeah.
So you did the classified, no response at all.
No response at all. But I put it on my like press web page.
Can everyone hear? Yep.
So and that like and actually also my manufacturer was very proud to walk with my full advertisement. But he was like, yes.
Is anyone ready to share some mistakes? Oh, no horrors. No, well, go ahead. Share your comment, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry, and I'm co-founder of a website that's about to launch. I'd be interested to hear from you about examples of how you use social media as a way of marketing and making use of that facility. Thanks.
Lenique, do you want to go for this one first?
I would say social media has helped my business a lot. It was actually my mentor that told me that I need to be on Twitter, and I was like, I really don't get into. I didn't see that it was beneficial for my business, but he was like, I really think you should go on Twitter. And within, I would say, about 2 months of being on Twitter, obviously when you hashtag, you know, I'll put pictures and say, oh, I've created this ring, and you know, and then I might follow people and say, oh, you should. I really love your style. I really feel that you would like some of my jewelry, and I've actually gained a lot of customers through Twitter, and from them following me, and I'm just being really blunt and just getting in there and just be like, you know, your style is amazing. I really feel that my jewelry will complement you, and I've just gained relationships through that, and just not being so forceful in for the sale, gaining a relationship with the potential client, and it going from there, because most of my sales that I get are from word of mouth, and most of my customers are like friends, not friends, but I would say associates. They feel like relaxed, because it's not, I don't want to be sort of a brand that, you know, you just buy one item from me and you never come back because you never enjoyed the experience. Most of my sales have come through repeat customers, and that's going to keep me afloat. That's going to keep my business, you know, those customers that keep coming back, you know, time after time. So, yeah.
So the initial relationship that you've built up doesn't stop with the first sale. The relationship continues after the first sale.
Yeah, yeah.
That's critical.
Yeah, I think that's the most. I think for my business, how I, you know, my business model, I think that's the most important thing, because, you know, from experience and asking other people that have had businesses for 15, 20 years and asking their advice, they have said it's the repeat customers that keep on coming back and the recommendations. So that's why, again, I do stress that I'm not necessarily would go down the advertising route, i.e. PR or anything like that, because I feel that my business has grown organically and well without the need for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great point made. Juliet, would you like to pick up on that?
Yeah, I think it builds on what you guys have been saying about the importance of trust. And there's another word that you can hear a lot about, which is about authenticity. And it's about, if you are creating a brand, you're really creating a personality when you're doing that. And because of that, what you want to do is you want to make sure that, again, everything is consistent across every customer touch point. So you want to make sure that the product feels the same, as the packaging feels the same, as the way that you answer the phones feels the same. And one of the best ways to do that is through social. So you can do that through Twitter. You know, you can do that through Facebook. And Sylistpick has got something like 110,000 likes on Facebook. We're a tiny business, but we've really focused on Facebook as being a really important outlet for us. And so we're, a few months ago, I don't know if it's still true, but we were one of the top 10 fashion retail websites in the UK in terms of likes. And we focused on that because for us, it's part of the universe, the universe that our customers use on a regular basis. It may not be delivering to us sales today, but it's certainly developing a relationship of trust, and it's raising our profile in an appropriate way in the world that our customer is working in. So that's really important. Think about where your customer, what she loves. If she's really big on Pinterest, then really focus on Pinterest and make that work for you. You know, if she's all about Instagram or she's all about Tumblr, then do that and really understand where she lives, what she loves, and work from there. Twitter is probably the most powerful social outlet you can think about. Think about how much news has been broken on Twitter in even the past 3 or 4 days. So you can use that and you can make that work for you, but be authentic, be yourself, make your personality shine, especially if you're an SME. It's all about point of view, and it's all about making a step that you really believe in and are passionate about. And I think that's where social is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful channel to do that. But social means lots of things. So just pick your winners and really focus on those.
It's also with social, it's also almost like a two-step process. One is truly doing the research to understand where your customers are going to be and find out where they're going to hang out. Because there's nothing worse than companies deciding beforehand, right, we're going to have a Facebook page. They put it up. They don't know why they have it, other than other people have got one, so we've got one, so that's a tick box. But they don't know what to do with it. And the second thing is their customers may not be there anyway. So homework number one is where are your customers? Go where they are, not try and draw them to you. That's never going to work. And the second thing is the behaviour within those platforms, how you behave. I would absolutely agree with you, is down to authenticity.
How do you deal with negative tweets, negative Facebook comments?
Negative tweets, negative Facebook comments.
That's always a difficult one. I mean, and that's the issue. I mean, and again, there's a school of marketing that says that the customer owns the brand, and that really, the customer is engaged in you with a relationship in terms of actually creating what that relationship is going to be like. So you have to honor it, and sometimes you respond, and sometimes you just let it go. So sometimes you'll just see a huge conversation going on, and it's going to flame out and it'll finish. Sometimes customers will come in to defend you, and they'll say, come on guys, actually, this is a really good thing. And then sometimes you do have to address it, and you can do it either privately or you can do it online. And I think it is just, again, about judgment. I mean, people always think that marketing is this great, big, huge technical deal. It's not. It's just about smart thinking, and it's just about clear communication. So, communicate in the way that you would if you were having a dialogue or conversation with a customer, in a shop. You do it in an elegant way, you do it in a brand appropriate way, but you do react, and then my God, well, how useful is that to get that kind of data and that information back? But you have got channels. It kind of depends on what the issue is.
Chitra?
Well, this is probably quite prosaic to say this, but I think, there's nothing better than just apologising if things go wrong as well, and preempting and anticipating, so that something is going to come up that actually you're not going to be able to handle. So let people know, and let them know in advance, so that you're not actually, it's respect. It's respect for the consumer. You can't pull the wool over their eyes. They're too smart. So just handle it that way.
There are also situations, obviously, where people just like to. We all know there are people who just want to have a moan anyway. The Brits are famous for moaning a lot. But, so that's fine. We're going to get that. But the problem is when brands, for instance, there's one fashion brand I know. They got some complaints, a number of complaints on Facebook, and it then flipped over onto Twitter as well about some issue around sizing. And instead of dealing with it in a true, authentic, open, honest way, they shut down, they took those particular comments off of Facebook. Surprisingly, someone spotted, and it then flipped over to Mumsnet. Then all hell broke loose. So now you have a client, in the space of 2 days, it turned from something that could have been handled simply and go either hands up or we're doing our best or let's have a chat, how can we help together, come try and crack this together. Instead of dealing with it in that way, they did what companies who are led by lawyers and accountants would do, as opposed to companies that are led from the heart. And ultimately, this shift towards a business which is, whether it's slow or whether it's elegant marketing, whatever you want to call it, fundamentally, you can't hide behind the promises of advertising anymore. You have to live the values of your business in a true and open way. So, if that helps. Anyone else out there? Oh, there's one at the back. Oh, there's one at the front afterwards.
Hi, this is Prachi. How do you focus social media marketing to a specific set of customers?
So you're about focusing towards niche customers in the social media space.
Yeah, through social media. Yeah.
Oh, niche. Well, you're pretty niche, aren't you? How do you deal with finding the customer who is going to be intrigued and interested in your fantastic jewellery? How do you focus in on them?
I think it's been a lot more easier since I've gone on the social media platform. Obviously, I could follow people or like their page and find out who goes. Basically, if I aspire towards a certain brand who I want to be like, I would follow them, and then I would find out who their customers are because they'll tweet about it, and then I'll follow them, and then that's how I would do it like that. So that's how I would kind of find out who my niche are because of the brands that I aspire to be. So simple as that.
So the customers you want are the customers who are
that
spending money
with them.
on these other brands. So you're going to where those other brands are hanging out,
yeah,
and just hang out in the same kind of spaces,
yeah,
and then start to fish.
And then take them. So.
That's a pretty good tip. Juliet?
I think the thing about social is it's big push. So you're talking to everyone. It's like a wide band thing there. And then when they start reacting to you, then you collect that information and you look at, you have a look at what their personalities are like. And then I think, a lot of, it sounds like you're asking a question about CRM, which is really about, developing lists of people and then sending newsletters out. And then that goes into a slightly different type of thing than social. So at that point, then you're looking at buying lists, and then you're doing affiliate work with blogs, and it becomes a slightly different proposition. But I think the power of social is you get to talk to everyone, and then people will come and find you. They do self-select, and I think what you're doing is fantastic. It's a really pragmatic and flexible way of doing it. But if you really want to build an email database and really start talking to customers, then it's a slightly different category. It's a slightly different, it's a slightly different skill set. Does that help?
This is turning into a good little surgery, isn't it? This lady at the front.
Good afternoon. My name is Ifoma, and my question is, what other fashion marketing tools are there apart from social media, and which ones would you say are the most key tools or very important in being able to successfully market your product?
Well, again, it depends where your brand is and what kind of product you have. There's all sorts of trunk shows. Certain fashion companies do trunk shows where they actually go to a particular hotel, or they work with, within parties on a small scale, and that works quite well as well. If you think of Anne Summers, that's how she started. There's also, I think there's a caveat with this. I think you can't bypass social media. I think you've got to deal with it. And I think that's very important. You can do trunk shows, you can do everything else, but again, it's sort of being on all those channels, and I think that's quite important. So I wouldn't say you could do one thing and not the other. You'd need to tackle social media.
My question is actually, we all know about social media, but I'm thinking of alternative tools. Everyone is aware of social media, but what are the alternative tools that are maybe more personal than social media, which is like in space? There are more personal ways of being able to market your product.
I would add to Juliet's point that it does depend on where your business is going, but the personal relationships that many, I think I can't speak for everyone on the panel, but that I've built up through social media platforms are phenomenal. Business relationships, personal relationships, insight from other people who've now helped my business through, particularly for me, Twitter has been very, very successful. However, in terms of other platforms, other tools, as you mentioned, trunk shows, there's a fascinating business in Miami I came across recently their whole business is based on trunk shows. They don't do they spend not one single penny on marketing. It's trunk shows and word of mouth, and their website and social. They're not spending a penny on, the only cost they've put in is the cost of building their site. Everything else is a commitment to all of these different bits. But it's a time commitment, not a financial commitment. And that's the issue, is sometimes people don't put enough time in working out what the right mix is of tools, and that's where the test, retest, learn, move on is really, really important.
I think everyone always thinks that because it's technology that there's going to be an amazing new channel that's going to come out, but really it does remain a lot of the same. You know, there's social, there's customer relationship management, which is the email piece, there's advertising through affiliates and blogs, there's PR, but there's nothing that's new. It's just how you go about doing it, and absolutely how that mix works. One of the things that we haven't really touched on is the power of PR. And you know, a lot of people will think that means hiring a big PR agency, which isn't necessarily the case. You know, some of the most powerful PR that you can get right now is about having relationships with bloggers, because bloggers are the new media businesses. You know, there's Vogue, and then there's Liberty London Girl, and Liberty London Girl is just as powerful as Vogue is these days. So it's about what you do with those bloggers and whether or not actually you start a blog yourself and you become a media property yourself too. So there are, you know, but those basics that have to do with marketing, I think they're kind of the same. They're just interpreted in different ways for a different medium. And as we've been all saying, I think it is just about getting that balance right and figuring out what's right for you in your brand and how your brand works. And that's the thing that's going to make you distinctive, is getting that mix right. So, you know, for Sylistpick, we use some things, some channels, and other channels we don't really go with because it's not very us. So you just have to make those judgments as you go along.
Yeah, another thing I would say for anyone that's in the fashion business, what I found was really beneficial for my business is actually approaching people. It could be fashion stylists or, you know, a blogger, and just basically saying, can you review my collection? Everyone feels like, oh, you know, everyone likes the fact that they feel important, like, you know, I'm going to review their collection. And that's how I've managed to get some other contacts by them coming to view my collection. It doesn't mean that they're going to feature my jewellery on their blog, but they can give me another link towards someone else that they, you know, I'll get to find out other things that I wasn't necessarily know by following them on Twitter, but them coming to my studio and us building a relationship has given me other contacts that, you know, have given me business. So I would say that's like really important as well. You know, getting your work featured on a blog or even getting a relationship with them and getting feedback, I would say that's another, you know, benefit that I've got from speaking to editors of blogs and just be like, you know, what do you think of my jewellery? How can I improve it? You know, and they've given me ideas that have gone on for me to do other collections. So it's kind of just like feedback. And one more thing I would say, if your brand is necessarily your name, like my name, Lenique Louis, you have to be very careful when you're dealing with Twitter and Facebook and putting your own opinions on subjects, because people do pick it up, and you have to just, and also who you follow and who follows you, because if someone replies to something on your Twitter page, and that's part of your brand, and it's quite offensive, then customers will send you a direct message and will unfollow you because they don't want to be associated with like rude comments, you know, because you've got your friends, you know, following you and stuff like that. So you just have to be aware. You know, this is my example. It's happened to me, so.
That sounds like we're going back to the horror stories again. We've got 3 over there. We've got 6 minutes left. So the guy with the orange pencil.
Hello.
Is next.
Okay, we've been talking about how to promote it and what to do now, but my question is when. So can you give us an advice? Like, you have to deal always with not to promote it too soon because you have to be able to attend to the demand. And so, can you give us an advice of when is the correct moment to?
When is the correct moment?
Yeah, like how to deal with that, no? When?
One
to
could
promote it, to do the Facebook page.
Yeah, so one could argue that it's always a good time. Now, start now. There are lots of people, in my experience, there are many people who put so much time into planning things and is over worrying about is it going to be perfect or not, that they lose the spontaneity of the real essence of what your business is. If it's jewellery, the jewellery tells the story, and Lenique's ability to share that story is the brand. So you don't have to think about it too much, just start doing it. And if everything isn't in place, that's okay, because people are just following the stories, following Lenique and following her journey. That in itself is the wonderful part of slow marketing, for instance, of that slowly but surely organically building trust in your business. So that's my input, but if anyone wants to disagree.
Just sort of seeing quite a few young fashion brands starting from the college, that's what we've found, is that they start really early. They start before they've got their range together, and they're already getting feedback on the sort of concepts they're developing, the styling they're developing, and their ideas. And I think that dialogue is really important to build slowly, organically. And it also sort of builds trust at the same time. So I think, yeah, it's never too soon to start.
Yeah, never too early.
This one.
We've got so many mics.
I would say, in terms of the organically, when to start, you know when the right time is. Obviously, you get a lot of people that are not necessarily in the business field that want to tell you when you should start something or want to give you that advice. But you know your business model and you know what you want to create. There's nothing wrong with waiting for the right time when you've got everything together, because that's how I've made the costly mistakes, by getting advice from other people and being like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, instead of trusting my own judgment and saying, okay, I'm not ready as yet. There's no rush. If you know that you want a sustainable business, it's not going to go anywhere. Your dream's not going to go anywhere. You wait until you've got everything together and then go out there, because obviously you want to create the right impression, and if it's a brand, you have to make sure that, you know, this all goes together. So.
I'm just going to pick up that gentleman with the orange pencil.
Yeah.
Going up next.
Thank you. Once again, I'm Armando Azevedo, and I am a menswear fashion business. Basically, my question is about establishing, again, relationships. How do you go on making sure that you really do that? Any recommendations?
In terms of building long-term relationships?
Long-term relationships, and in, you know, that sort of concept about sorry, you mentioned the word, being authentic about the way you go on with your customers.
So it's really, you're talking about loyalty, aren't you?
Loyalty.
Yeah. And I think that really just comes back again to looking at everything that you're doing, because, you know, there are so many different ways that a customer is going to touch your brand. So it will be through, you know, meeting you, or it will be seeing the product and loving it on someone else, or it will be through an email, or it will be through a tweet. And the thing is it's not linear anymore in terms of the way that people engage with brands. It's completely holistic. And, you know, a customer may come across you and your brand 6 different times before they decide that they're actually going to make a sale. But at the same time, the more that they get used to, it's like meeting someone for the first time. You know, you kind of get a sense of who they are, and then you have a conversation, and then, you know, the second time you meet them, they feel a little bit different, and you're starting to develop that relationship. And that's exactly the same thing with a brand. And every moment that you're on your journey with them, you're deepening the loyalty and the relationship that you have with them. So don't be scared if they don't convert immediately. You know, if they don't convert, you know, the first 6 or 7 times, that's okay, because they will come back. They're just getting used to you, in the same way that you'd be getting used to, you know, someone that you were getting involved with. It's just, that's exactly the same thing. Marketing is very human, and brands are human. And so that is going to, it could possibly be gentle. Or they could just say, oh my God, I've got to have that jacket. That is the jacket for me, and you're the man for me, and I'm going to come back forever. Everyone is different. So you can't expect people just to behave in an algorithm, because they're not. Does that help?
But it's also the surprise that one can bring to that relationship, because sometimes they expect brands to behave in a certain way, that they've taken my money, I like it, and you'll get a little email now and again of some sort of discount at the sale or something or other, and that's about it. But when they get something from a brand that is completely surprising, whether it's, and birthday cards are now done, you know, but like little birthday messages are all quite common. But if you get a little tweet saying, "Oh, I hope you have a lovely holiday," it's amazing. It's just little things like that. It shows that they're really taking note of you as a person, and they've got their eye on you, and they're caring for you in a way that brands don't normally care. Little things like that make a massive difference.
It's really important, but I'll tell you a horror story about this, which goes back yonks and yonks ago. I worked with a guy who, when he bought his first Porsche, it was just the most extraordinary experience. He was so excited, etc., etc. He got the car, he had fantastic customer service all the way through it, and then he got a call a week later and said, from the sales guy saying, "How do you feel? How are you loving it?" And had a long conversation with the guy. And he really felt a huge brand engagement because of that, because he felt that the sales guy had called him up personally and had that. The only problem is the second time that he bought a Porsche, the same thing happened. A week later, he got a call from the sales guy. And he then realized that it was a process and it wasn't authentic, it wasn't real. So when you are doing it, just think about what those touch points are like, and that maybe you have, you know, first experience and second experience, because you do really want to make it real. You don't want to just follow into a formula.
Is it a good idea to go back to your direct consumer and ask for feedback?
Yeah.
Feedback's
great.
I don't think anyone would disagree. I don't think anyone in the room would disagree that feedback is not a great thing. I know I'm cognizant of time because I think it's lunchtime now. Now I know there was a young lady at the back who had her hand up. If it is a super quick one, and then have you got? Yeah, because then we can make sure you get your question in, please.
I just want to go. Sorry, my name's Dana. I want to go back kind of to prototype actually. Juliet, you were saying about test quickly, fail early. Were there any kind of fundamental changes or pivots that you had to make before, you know, you really became popular who you are today?
Yeah, we've pivoted a lot, and I think everyone pivots. I think pivot is just, it's a term that absolutely sort of lives and breathes in the tech world. So our model started off as a subscription model, and over the past 8 months we've evolved it into something that is much more open and is much more about personalization, because we were learning about customer behavior and what she loved and what she didn't. So, you know, what we had was we had a really loyal customer who was, you know, completely committed to us and loved what we did. We wouldn't have enough of them, so we opened opened it up and made it much more accessible for people, which has been really useful for us. But and I think that that's the joy of being in a digital business, is that there is that sense of exploration and you can go about doing that. I think it's much more complicated to do that if you're in a bricks business. But if you're, and bricks and clicks again, it's the same issue, but if you're clicks only, if you're digital only, then yeah, absolutely, it's in your control and you can decide what you want. And again, because the customer feels a little bit differently, you can go into that beta mode, you can go into that development mode. You know, he or she is on the journey with you. And as long as you communicate it clearly to them and you tell them what's going on, again, it's just deepening that relationship with them and they're feeling more comfortable with you.
I think we're going to wrap it up now. I think it's going to be lunchtime now. Oh, is it where, are we going round where we had our little coffee break?
If you could aim to be back here by 1 to 2 so we can start at 2, that would be great. We've got an expo with lots and lots of people. So go where you had the coffee break, there's lunch, and there's a... Oh, and also, if you've got questions, we're going to have a problem-solving session. So do add your questions to the board, but by the looks of it, we're not going to have problems. But thank you very, very much.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Chitra, Lenique, Juliet, thank you very much.